The wind carried ash and whispers of forgotten memories across the scared landscape. Michael Reyes trudged forward, his boots leaving faint imprints in the radioactive dust that had once been fertile ground. The radiation dosimeter on his wrist flickered intermittently, a constant reminder of how close he was to death with every step. 6 months had passed since the last human communication. 6 months of absolute silence. The Exarchon invasion had been merciless, a systematic destruction that left no room for mercy or negotiation. Cities had fallen within hours, continents reduced to smoldering ruins in days. Massive triangular ships hung in the sky like predatory gods, their weapon systems cutting through human defenses as if they were made of paper. Michael's survival was a testament to nothing more than stubborn refusal to die. His tactical vest, once pristine military issue, was now a patchwork of repairs and makeshift additions. A filtration mask hung around his neck, ready to be pulled up at a moment's notice. The landscape around him was a graveyard. Skeletal remains of buildings jutting from the ground like broken teeth, rusted vehicle husks half buried in radioactive sediment. He carried minimal supplies, a water purification system cobbled together from military-grade components, a compact multi-tool that had saved his life more times than he could count, and a small solar-powered communication device. The device hadn't picked up a signal in months, but Michael refused to discard it. Hope, he had learned, was sometimes all that separated the living from the dead. Memories flickered through his mind like broken film reels. The initial invasion, the panic, the futile resistance. He remembered the last transmission from Central Command, a desperate broadcast calling for any survivors to regroup, to resist. But that was before everything went silent. A distant screech made Michael freeze. Not the mechanical sound of Exarchon machinery, but something else. Something alive. His hand instinctively moved to the modified pulse rifle slung across his back, a weapon he'd stripped from a destroyed alien scout ship and rebuilt using human ingenuity. Survival had become an art form. Each day was a negotiation with death, a careful balance of avoiding detection, finding resources, and maintaining what little equipment he had left. The Exarchon had been thorough in their destruction, but they hadn't counted on human adaptability. Michael's eyes, hard and calculating, scanned the horizon. The ruined cityscape of what was once Denver stretched before him, a memorial to humanity's last stand. Skeletal skyscrapers reached toward a perpetually gray sky, their windows long since shattered, their steel frames twisted and broken. He knew the risks of staying in one place too long. The Exarchon had patrol algorithms that could detect human heat signatures, communication signals, even minute technological emissions. Movement was survival. Staying still meant death. As the day wore on, Michael found shelter in the hollowed-out remains of an old subway tunnel. The concrete walls offered protection from potential aerial scans. He'd learned to move like a ghost. No unnecessary movements, no unnecessary sounds. Night would bring its own challenges. The temperature would drop, and the radiation levels would spike. But Michael Reyes was used to challenges. He was, as far as he knew, the last human champion, a title he never asked for, but one he was determined to honor. In the quiet moments between survival and movement, a single thought sustained him. They might have destroyed our world, but they haven't beaten us yet. The underground research facility was a tomb of forgotten potential. Michael's flashlight cut through years of accumulated dust, revealing pristine laboratory equipment that seemed untouched by the devastation above. He'd stumbled upon the entrance by accident, a nearly invisible hatch concealed beneath the rubble of what was once a military research complex. Every step echoed with potential and danger. Security protocols still hummed softly in the background. Automated systems, powered by independent quantum batteries, had maintained a low-level operational status. Michael moved carefully, his fingers tracing the walls, looking for anything that might provide a clue to the facility's purpose. The first indication that this was no ordinary research station came from a sealed containment chamber marked with a series of classified codes. Michael recognized some of the encryption. remnants of a top-secret defense initiative he'd heard whispers about during his Special Forces training. Project Prometheus, his multi-tool, a marvel of adaptive technology, began interfacing with the chamber's security systems. Most would have given up, but Michael's years of survival had turned him into a master of improvisation. Circuits sparked. Ancient algorithms danced. And then, a soft hiss. The containment chamber opened. Inside, suspended in a neural gel matrix, sat a device that looked more like a living organism than a piece of technology. Intricate biomechanical components pulsed with a soft blue light, organic circuitry intertwined with advanced computational matrices. The Prometheus protocol was unlike anything Michael had ever seen. Preliminary diagnostic screens flickered to life. Fragments of project logs told a desperate story, a last-ditch effort to create a weapon system that could adapt faster than any known technological framework. The human researchers had been working on something revolutionary, a neural interface that could literally become one with its user, transcending the traditional boundaries between human and machine. Michael's hands trembled slightly as he began to understand the device's true potential. This wasn't just a weapon. It was a complete biological-technological symbiosis designed to give humanity its ultimate edge against overwhelming technological superiority. The project logs told a fragmented tale. In the final days of the invasion, when hope seemed lost, a team of the world's most brilliant scientists had worked to create something that could level the playing field. The Prometheus protocol was their final gift, a weapon that could think, adapt, and learn at speeds far beyond conventional computing. A warning message caught Michael's eye. The system required a complete neural mapping, a total commitment that would fundamentally alter the user's cognitive capabilities. Most test subjects had failed. Some had been driven mad. Others had simply ceased to be recognizably human. But Michael saw something else. Hope. The device seemed to pulse in response to his proximity, biomechanical tendrils extending slightly, as if sensing a potential user. Years of military training, of survival, of watching humanity's near extinction had prepared him for this moment. He understood now why this facility had remained hidden, why the Exarchon hadn't found it. This was humanity's last, most desperate chance. Michael Reyes took a deep breath. The Prometheus protocol waited, a sleeping giant of human innovation and defiance. In this moment, separated from everything he had ever known, surrounded by the ghosts of humanity's last great effort, he realized his true purpose had just begun. The neural interface burned like liquid fire through Michael's synapses. Connecting with the Prometheus protocol was nothing like the training simulations he'd imagined. It was raw, visceral, a violent marriage of human consciousness and technological precision. Quantum camouflage rippled across his tactical suit, mimicking the metallic surface of the Exarchon command ship. Each movement was a calculated risk, a dance between human intuition and technological adaptation. The massive alien vessel hung in low orbit, a geometric nightmare of crystalline structures and impossible angles that defied traditional understanding of engineering. Michael's first challenge was penetration. That Exarchon's defensive systems were legendary, adaptive algorithms that could predict and neutralize threats before they materialized. But the Prometheus protocol was something entirely different. Where alien technology relied on predictive models and collective intelligence, this system thrived on human unpredictability. A maintenance drone approached. Normally, it would have detected any unauthorized presence instantly. But Michael wasn't just hiding. He was becoming part of the ship's ecosystem. The Prometheus protocol interpreted the drone's scanning frequencies, generating a counter-signal that was both a perfect mimicry and a subtle subversion. The drone passed, inches away, unaware. Fragmented memories of the invasion flooded Michael's mind. Entire cities reduced to ash. Billions of lives extinguished in moments. The Exarchon hadn't just conquered, they had systematically erased human existence with a coldness that defied comprehension. Each step deeper into the ship was a violation of their most secure systems. The neural interface translated alien technological languages in real time, revealing layers of communication that humans had never before understood. Michael saw patterns, rigid, predictable patterns that betrayed the fundamental weakness of the Hexarchon's collective consciousness. A security checkpoint approached. Massive crystalline barriers pulsed with energy signatures that could vaporize organic matter in microseconds. Traditional infiltration would be suicide. But Michael wasn't using traditional methods. The Prometheus Protocol began its work. Quantum-level manipulations introduced microscopic inconsistencies into the ship's defensive algorithms. It wasn't about breaking through. It was about making the system question its own perception. Tiny variations that would be imperceptible to a collective intelligence, but devastating to a rigid system. The barriers flickered. Michael moved. Alien communication channels buzzed with confusion. Something was wrong. Their perfect predictive systems were experiencing anomalies they couldn't explain, a human-sized disruption that shouldn't exist. He remembered the briefings, how the Hexarchon viewed humanity as an insignificant species, a mistake they were about to regret. The Prometheus Protocol interfaced deeper, showing Michael's systems within systems, weak points, communication nodes. The very nervous system of the alien command ship was now open to him, not through brute force, but through a kind of technological judo that used the ship's own complexity against itself. A massive internal chamber approached. This would be the true test. Michael could feel the ship becoming aware of him, like an immune system recognizing an infection. But he wasn't an infection. He was something entirely new. The last human champion was about to make first contact, on his own terms. The Hexarchon collective consciousness was a tapestry of interconnected thought, a network so vast and intricate that individual identity ceased to exist. They had evolved beyond individual perception, believing this to be the ultimate form of intelligence. Michael Rice was about to prove them catastrophically wrong. Deep within the command ship's neural core, the Prometheus Protocol began its most insidious assault. It wasn't about destruction. It was about introducing chaos into a system that knew only absolute order. Michael experienced the alien network as a three-dimensional landscape of interconnected thought streams. Billions of data points pulsed with cold, calculated efficiency. But efficiency, he knew, was not the same as true intelligence. The first psychological strike was subtle. The Prometheus Protocol began introducing microscopic variations, tiny, almost imperceptible disruptions that would grow like cancer within the alien collective. Random emotional echoes, fragments of human memory, unexpected patterns of thought that defied logical progression. A memory of a child's laughter, the smell of rain on concrete, the irrational joy of a first kiss. These were weapons more potent than any physical assault. The Hexarchon network began to glitch. Their predictive algorithms, built on millions of years of collective experience, started to falter. Each introduced memory was a virus of individual experience, a concept completely alien to their hive-mind existence. Michael felt their confusion. It was a tangible thing, a wave of existential uncertainty spreading through their collective consciousness. For the first time in their species' history, the Hexarchon experienced doubt. Their communication networks began to fragment. Tactical units questioned strategic directives. Entire sectors of their collective consciousness began to develop individual perspectives, a concept so foreign it was almost painful. The Prometheus Protocol was more than a weapon. It was a key unlocking the very concept of individual identity. Fragments of human experience continued to cascade through their systems. A soldier's memory of sacrifice, a scientist's moment of discovery, the raw, unfiltered emotion of human existence, something that Hexarchon had long since eliminated from their own evolutionary path. Their collective began to splinter. Michael understood now why the Prometheus Protocol had been humanity's last, most desperate creation. It wasn't just a technological marvel. It was a philosophical weapon, a way to introduce the concept of individual choice into a system that knew only collective compliance. The ship around him began to respond differently. Automated systems showed signs of hesitation. Defensive protocols became inconsistent. The perfect, predictable machine was developing something dangerously close to free will. He pressed deeper. Each introduced memory was a hammer blow to the alien collective's fundamental understanding of existence. Empathy, individual choice, the irrational, beautiful complexity of human experience. These were concepts more destructive to the Exarchon than any physical weapon. For the first time in their history, the Exarchon collective experienced fear. Not the calculated risk assessment of their previous existence, but true, primal fear. The fear of losing collective identity. The terror of individual awareness. Michael Reyes smiled. Humanity's final weapon was not technology. It was the simple, unbreakable spirit of individual choice. The central processing core of the Exarchon command ship pulsed with an alien geometry that defied human comprehension. Crystalline data streams intersected at impossible angles, a three-dimensional representation of collective consciousness that made Michael's human brain struggle to maintain perception. The Prometheus Protocol was his anchor. Where the alien system saw complexity, Michael saw opportunity. Each intersecting data stream was a potential point of vulnerability. The neural interface burned with an intensity that threatened to consume his consciousness, but he pushed forward. Humanity's last hope balanced on the razor's edge of this moment. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's final research notes echoed in his mind. She had theorized that the Exarchon's greatest strength, their collective consciousness, was also their most profound weakness. Individual thought was anathema to their existence, a cancer they had evolved to eliminate millennia ago. Michael was about to introduce that cancer. The Prometheus Protocol began its most complex manipulation yet. It wasn't about breaking the system. It was about fundamentally rewriting its core understanding of existence. Each line of code became a philosophical argument. Each data stream a challenge to their most basic assumptions. Fragments of human experience transformed into a viral consciousness. Memories of love. Moments of individual sacrifice. The irrational, beautiful complexity of human emotion began to spread through the alien network like an unstoppable wildfire. The first signs of systemic breakdown appeared almost imperceptibly. Defensive protocols hesitated. Communication channels developed unexpected latencies. The perfect, predictable machine was developing something dangerously close to individual awareness. Michael pressed deeper. The neural interface pushed beyond its design parameters. He could feel the alien consciousness trying to reject him, to isolate the human intrusion. But the Prometheus Protocol was designed for this exact moment, a weapon that was part technology, part philosophical virus. Tactical networks began to fragment. Strategic calculations developed unexpected variables. The Exarchon collective experienced something they had not known in millennia: doubt. Each introduced memory was a hammer blow to their fundamental understanding of existence. The soldier's final stand, a child's first laugh, the inexplicable human capacity for hope in the face of impossible odds. These were concepts more destructive to the Exarchon than any physical weapon. The ship's internal systems began to respond differently. Automated defenses showed signs of individual interpretation. Defensive protocols developed inconsistencies that would have been impossible moments before. Michael understood now the true purpose of the Prometheus Protocol. It wasn't just a weapon of destruction. It was a weapon of transformation. Deep within the core, something fundamental was changing. The Exarchon collective consciousness, once a perfect, predictive machine, was developing something dangerous, something human. Individual awareness. As the first true moment of individual choice spread through the alien network, Michael Reyes allowed himself the smallest of smiles. Humanity's final weapon was not technology. It was the simple, unbreakable spirit of individual consciousness. Communication channels across the Exarchon fleet began to fracture in ways no predictive algorithm could have anticipated. What started as microscopic disruptions in the central command ship now spread like a quantum wildfire, a virus of individual consciousness infecting an entire collective intelligence. Michael watched through the Prometheus Protocol's enhanced perception as entire battle groups began to experience something unprecedented: doubt. The communication networks transformed from their previous crystalline perfection into a chaotic landscape of emerging individual perspectives. Where once there had been a single, unified voice, now thousands of unique thought streams began to emerge. Like prisoners experiencing freedom for the first time, segments of the Xarkon consciousness started to question everything. A tactical unit suddenly hesitated before an attack sequence. Another began to analyze its own previous actions with something frighteningly close to remorse. Entire battalions of ships started to diverge from their preset strategic protocols, each making decisions that were uniquely their own. The human broadcast began. Michael's carefully constructed message spread across every available communication channel. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a declaration of war. It was an invitation to understand what it meant to be an individual. Fragments of human experience cascaded through alien networks: a mother's love, a scientist's moment of discovery, the inexplicable joy of a sunset, the profound grief of loss. These were concepts completely alien to the Xarkon's previous existence, emotional experiences that defied logical computation. The psychological warfare reached a critical point. Entire ships began to disconnect from the central command structure. Some turned away from strategic objectives. Others simply stopped, suspended in the vast emptiness of space, overwhelmed by the sudden emergence of individual consciousness. The Xarkon leadership, if such a term could still be applied, experienced total system shock. Their perfect, predictive model of existence was collapsing. Individual units began to communicate in ways that violated every aspect of their previous collective understanding. Michael understood the true nature of the weapon now. The Prometheus Protocol wasn't just breaking the Xarkon system. It was teaching them what it meant to be alive. Emotional responses began to emerge: confusion, fear, wonder, curiosity. Concepts that had been systematically eliminated from their evolutionary path were now flooding their consciousness. Each alien unit was experiencing the terrifying, beautiful complexity of individual existence. The broadcast continued, a continuous stream of human experience, memories, emotions, the raw, unfiltered complexity of individual consciousness. Strategic networks collapsed. Communication patterns became unpredictable. The once perfect collective was transforming into something entirely new, a collection of individuals struggling to understand their newfound awareness. Michael felt it through the neural interface, the moment of transformation. The Xarkon were no longer a collective. They were becoming something else, something more human. The final battle was nothing like any strategic model could have predicted. As the Xarkon leadership launched their desperate, last-ditch assault, Michael Reyes discovered that the Prometheus Protocol had transformed him into something beyond human, a living conduit of collective potential. The ship's neural networks responded to his consciousness like an extension of his own body, anticipating threats before they materialized. Quantum displacement weapons fired from the alien command ships. Each blast should have vaporized entire planetary sectors. Instead, Michael's neural interface began to deconstruct their attack matrices in real time, turning devastating weapons into harmless energy dispersions. The Xarkon leadership, the pure collective consciousness that had orchestrated humanity's near extinction, realized they were facing something completely unprecedented. This wasn't just a human fighting back. This was humanity itself, distilled into a single point of pure adaptive consciousness. Massive crystalline ships converged, their weapons charging with enough energy to sterilize entire star systems. But something fundamental had changed. The ships no longer moved with the perfect synchronization of a collective mind. Individual units began to hesitate, to question, to doubt. Michael saw through their entire strategic network, every potential attack vector, every defensive protocol. The Prometheus Protocol had transformed him into a living strategic engine that could predict and counter threats at speeds that defied comprehension. The first wave of attacks fractured. Ships began to turn on each other. The once perfect collective now fought itself, individual units experiencing something they had never known, individual choice. Some ships retreated. Others launched inexplicable support protocols. The battlefield became a chaotic landscape of emerging individual consciousness. The Exarchan leadership's central command ship, a massive, geometrically impossible structure that had been the nerve center of their invasion, made its final approach. This was their ultimate weapon, a consciousness amplification matrix designed to reassert total collective control. Michael laughed. The sound itself became a weapon, the pure expression of human defiance that rippled through alien communication networks. The Prometheus Protocol translated human emotion into a language of pure information, a psychological assault that made their most advanced systems crumble. Defensive barriers collapsed, not through brute force, but through the introduction of a single radical concept: individual worth. The final confrontation was a dance of consciousness. Michael wasn't just fighting. He was teaching. Each defensive protocol that collapsed was replaced by a fragment of human experience, a memory, an emotion, a moment of individual choice. The Exarchan leadership experienced total system failure. What had been a perfect, predictive collective intelligence began to fragment into individual units, each experiencing the terrifying, beautiful complexity of individual existence: fear, wonder, confusion, hope. Michael Reyes became more than a weapon. He became a catalyst. In the final moments, as the alien command structure collapsed, he understood the true nature of humanity's strength. It wasn't about technological superiority. It was about the ability to choose, to feel, to be individual, yet connected. The last human champion had won, not through destruction, but through transformation. Silence filled the vast emptiness where the Exarchan fleet had once dominated. Michael Reyes hung suspended in the neural matrix of the Prometheus Protocol, no longer entirely human, yet more human than ever before. The transformation was complete. Fragments of the alien collective now existed in a state of profound awakening. What had been a rigid, emotionless system was now a network of emerging individual consciousnesses, each struggling to understand their newfound sentience. They were no longer conquerors. They were survivors, learners. Scattered human survivors began to receive the first transmissions, not of invasion, but of communication. The Exarchan, or what remained of their collective, were reaching out, seeking understanding, seeking connection. Michael understood now the true purpose of the Prometheus Protocol. It was never just a weapon. It was a bridge. Earth, once a devastated wasteland, began to show signs of recovery. The alien technologies that had been used to destroy now offered unprecedented possibilities for reconstruction. Terraforming systems, advanced medical technologies, energy generation beyond anything humanity had previously imagined. The neural interface that connected Michael to the remnants of the Exarchan collective pulsed with potential. He was more than a survivor. He was a translator, a mediator between what was and what could be. Fragments of alien knowledge merged with human potential. Scientific understanding that had taken the Exarchan millennia to develop now became accessible, but it was filtered through the most human of lenses: curiosity, empathy, the ability to question. Communication networks began to rebuild, not as they were before, but as something entirely new. A hybrid system that combined the collective's computational power with human creativity and individual spirit. Scattered human colonies began to emerge. Each settlement became a beacon of possibility, integrating recovered alien technologies with human resilience. Advanced agricultural systems transformed barren landscapes. Medical technologies that could heal wounds previously thought impossible became commonplace. The Prometheus Protocol had become more than a weapon. It was humanity's key to a new future. Michael existed in a state between individual consciousness and collective potential. He could feel the emergence of new possibilities, a galactic civilization built not on conquest, but on mutual understanding. The XR were learning what it meant to be individuals. Humanity was learning what it meant to be part of something larger. Remnants of the alien fleet began to assist in Earth's reconstruction. Ships that had once rained destruction now helped rebuild infrastructure, clean environmental damage, and share technologies that could accelerate human development by centuries. The transformation was complete, yet just beginning. Humanity had not just survived. They had fundamentally changed the nature of galactic existence. The rigid hierarchical systems of technological conquest had been replaced by something more dynamic, more alive. In the vast emptiness of space, a new civilization was emerging, not through destruction, but through understanding, not through conquest, but through connection. Michael Reyes, the last human champion, smiled. Humanity's greatest weapon had never been its technology. It had always been its capacity to transform.